Hello and welcome to the 70th episode of Homescreen. I'm delighted to invite 𝗕𝗏𝗽𝗏𝗍𝗏, Head of International Investor Relations and Partnerships at Tinkoff. Today we're going to be talking about cultivating an ecosystem for Russia. We're going to be looking a bit into purchasing an iPhone. We're going to be looking into kind of booking a restaurant and also browsing through what's kind of like Instagram stories. So, welcome, Neri.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Joe. Great to be on the show.
No worries at all. Thanks so much for joining. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with Tinkoff?
Yeah, sure. So for the first 7 years of my career, I worked at Morgan Stanley as a research analyst, the majority of which I covered financial services in Eastern Europe and a little bit of emerging markets. And I was one of the analysts covering Tinkoff. So when I heard that Tinkoff wanted to hire someone to help out on the investor relations front, to help pitch the story and communicate to the world the great things that they were doing in Russia, I thought it was a great opportunity because Tinkoff always kind of out of my coverage, which included Russia, Eastern Europe, Middle East, Turkey. Tinkoff always stood out as one of those companies that was doing something genuinely different, that approached banking very differently. And so I had this inner curiosity to join and see it from the inside. And so I joined in November of last year and have been there now for, I guess, 9 months.
Nice. Great. And you touched on it there, but could you just tell us a little bit about what Tinkoff do and what their journey's been?
Sure. So Tinkoff has been around for quite some time, right? So it was founded in 2006, so predates any concept of fintech as we know it today. But it was founded basically as a branchless credit card monoliner, which then evolved as the platform to find clients, to onboard clients and to service clients evolved. We realized that our customer base had different needs beyond just a simple credit card. And so we engaged in a number of different businesses, both on the lending side and on the non-lending side, to then develop what we call now the Tinkoff ecosystem. So on the lending side, as I said, we were historically a credit card lender, but then we started developing other unsecured products, so cash loans and personal loans, point of sale lending, and then eventually actually into secured lending lines. So that's home equity, that's car lending. But also very importantly, we realized that especially as we had developed a current account product that was bringing a slightly different clientele, more young, tech savvy, mass affluent, these people had a different need, not necessarily a credit need. So we developed a whole set of new transactional products. So we have our own insurer where we actually underwrite our own insurance, predominantly auto insurance, but also travel and property. We have a retail brokerage. So think of it, I guess, a Robinhood within the Tinkoff ecosystem, and we're the largest in Russia by number of active clients. We've got 2.5 million brokerage accounts already open. We went into online acquiring. So we actually help businesses receive payments online, and we're the third largest acquirer in Russia. We have over 500,000 SME customers. So we have a transactional SME current account with all sorts of software that we develop for SMEs. And I think that's it. I mean, we have more things, but it's a lot of different products, credit, non-credit. And what we're trying to do is create an ecosystem. So wherever the customer comes in, whichever product, it's easy for them to find the next product that might complement their experience and that they might need.
Absolutely. And that's certainly a very broad range of features and products on offer there. And also just to say, very ahead of the curve there, the kind of branchless offering there. So very impressive to see how early on Tinkoff were making those strides for the right reasons.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, back in 2007 and 8, when we were just starting, the main online platform was obviously the website, Tinkoff.ru. But now we've become pretty much mobile first. Yeah. And if you look at our mobile app, the Tinkoff app that you'll find on the App Store, in terms of ratings and in terms of download, we've got over 20 million downloads. And in terms of rating, we're always top notch in Russia, but also compared to a lot of the kind of more global or famous fintechs that everybody talks about.
Yeah, it's a very, very impressive offering. And just very quickly, could you just kind of go over how the team structure works there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very flat structure, and we differentiate ourselves a lot to the traditional banks in that we have this flat structure with individual, basically small business lines within the big Tinkoff umbrella. So you've got a team that's responsible for credit cards, a team that's responsible for all the other credit lines, for retail brokerage, etc. Everyone has their own P&L, so they're responsible for how much they actually bring into the team, to the bigger group. Very young organization, so the average age in headquarters is about 27, 28, and extremely tech heavy. So in headquarters, we've got about 4,000 people, 3,000 of which roughly between software engineers, data scientists, financial analysts, so very data heavy. And yeah, of course, within each team, within each business, it's pretty much fully stacked team. You've got your own technologists, your own UX experts, your own finance guys. And then, of course, there are some functions that Tinkoff Group or Tinkoff Umbrella provides to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction effectively.
Okay, great. And you mentioned the headquarters there. Where are you guys based?
So we are based in Russia, in Moscow. That's our headquarters. We are only doing business in Russia, and we have been effectively since founding in 2006. And so our headquarters is Moscow, but then we have people working all over Russia, and that ranges from our customer service representatives, which are working from the cloud predominantly, so from home anywhere in Russia. We have 2,500 smart couriers. So in Russia, to open an account, unlike in the UK, you still have to do a physical meeting. So you have to have a face-to-face meeting with a signature. Yeah. And so because we're completely branchless, we had to somehow have a physical meeting. And so we set up this network of couriers that anywhere in Russia, and think, I mean, how big Russia is, within 24 hours of applying for a product, this guy will meet you anywhere in Russia to do the signature and actually onboard you. Wow. So it's a pretty big and well-oiled operation.
Yeah. Okay, great. And you mentioned you're very data heavy there. Does that feed into how you start exploring and expanding in the ecosystem? Is that very data led? Are you listening to customers and seeing what kind of things they might be looking for?
I mean, absolutely. And this was actually one of the biggest surprises for me when I joined as an analyst from Morgan Stanley into Tinkoff. The amount of data that is constantly analyzed and decisions are really taken on the data and the tests that we do. We apply a very strict test and learn procedure when we try to launch new businesses or test our hypotheses. And so everything is incredibly data heavy. It goes to the core of how we do business, which is a so-called NPV approach, where when we try to estimate the benefit that a certain operation will bring to us, a certain lending decision, a certain customer acquisition channel, a certain servicing channel, we always put it in the context of NPV. So we have models where we predict the behavior of our clients, and we constantly backtest these models to make sure that when we deploy our capital, we actually deploy it at a rate of return which is satisfactory to our shareholders, because we are a publicly listed company. We've been listed since 2013 on the London Stock Exchange, and so everything we do internally, we do it according to these models, or a lot of it we do it according to these models with a 30% hurdle rate, which is quite high. But that makes sure that every decision we take is backed up by lots of data and lots of tests.
Sure. I'm sure that's attributed to your great growth. Has the recent changes and the pandemic, has that had any effect on feature releases and the short-term roadmap and that kind of thing?
So it actually hasn't, and it's been quite a remarkable thing to observe from the outside, because of course we have a credit business which is relatively sizable, and as you would expect in this environment, we hit on the brakes a little bit. We reduced our issuance of loans to make sure that we weren't underwriting customers that would end up being defaulting on their loans. So that part of the business obviously slowed down a little bit. Yeah. But then we have all these transactional businesses that I was talking about earlier, which actually have been accelerating their growth, and we have a few that have really shot for the stars. And one of them is our current account. Mm-hmm. So think of a debit card plus mobile app, similar to what you see in Europe and with the Revoluts and the Monzos or the like. which we opened 1.2 million accounts in the second quarter alone, and that was up from, I think, under 1 million in the first quarter. So actually we accelerated the opening of current accounts there. We have a retail brokerage platform, which is absolutely booming. And so, as I said, we've got 2.5 million brokerage accounts already opened, more than 1 million opened since the beginning of the year. And it's been quite amazing to see how many features and how many new products were launched actually over the 3-4 months of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Look at Tinkoff Investments, again, our retail brokerage, we launched the micro investing service where you can round up your cash backs or your interest on your current account to make mini investments every week, every 2 weeks, every month. We introduced also the ability to reinvest your cash back or your interest into charitable organizations. On the SME side, for example, we launched a service that actually allows our SME customers to issue receipts fully digitally, so without actually having the paper receipt. In the context of our super app, which we're going to discuss shortly, we've done some new integrations, for example, with one of the largest marketplaces in Russia, where therefore now from the Tinkoff app, you can do a little bit of e-commerce yourself, and we're going to be testing it out later today. Sure. So it's actually been amazing that although basically by the second week of March, everybody was working remotely, it hadn't had any impact on the roadmap and on the product launches. It's been quite interesting.
And just before we do move on to those new user journeys as part of that super app, what was and how is the competition, both in the incumbent sense, the traditional banks and other financial services, as well as the kind of other fintechs in the Russian space?
On the one hand, Russia is a pretty closed market in that you don't have the same presence of the global tech giants as you do in other countries. So for example, Google is not the biggest search in Russia, it's Yandex. Facebook is not the biggest social media in Russia, it's ●𝗏𝗏. So you have a lot of local, very high quality players, very technological, because Russia has amazing scientific universities that produces very, very, very high quality software engineers and technologists. But it's still, because you have a lot of these highly technological players, it's still a fairly competitive market where you need to invest quite heavily in your workforce. You need to invest heavily in your technology to make sure that you remain ahead of the competition. Because also you have very sizable incumbents, like a Sberbank, for example, which is a government-owned bank, which are very heavily investing into technology and into creating ecosystems. So it's very competitive from the ecosystem perspective, and you've got at least 3 or 4 ecosystems that are being created right now by various players across the banking and the technology space, which is quite interesting. And I would say that the average Russian bank or the average Russian player in the ecosystem space is much further ahead in their development than many European or even American players.
Great. Well, let's jump into the first one. Browsing through stories.
So these we launched in 2017, if I recall correctly. Obviously inspired by the success of the Snapchats, the Instagrams, and the Facebooks with the stories. The idea, the difference here between, for example, what you'd see on an Instagram or a Snapchat is that this is not user-generated content. This is content that we generate ourselves, and I'll talk a little bit about how we generate that content. So this is the main page, and as you can see at the top, you've got different stories that you can browse through. So the first one is Russia, and obviously I'll be translating a little bit because everything is in Russian. But so this one is talking about the fact that Russia is reopening borders after the pandemic, and it's telling you where you can fly, how you can fly, and in many cases, then we'll actually offer you a link here where you can read more about it. And this goes again to the fact that we generate the content that is relevant for the customer. We have our algorithms and our technology that tell us what our different customers would like to read. And we provide that content. So here, for example, you see an article from Tinkoff Journal, which is our own online independent personal finance magazine with more than 8.5 million monthly readers, where we provide content that might be interesting to our clients. So here, for example, it's telling you of fiction novels that you might be interested in, and you can again click from a site that we provide, and you can go ahead and perhaps purchase the book right from that website. And again, we are obviously working very hard to make sure that these stories are tailored to each individual customers, and we're doing as much personalization as possible. Here, for example, you've got a little survey, what your plans are for traveling in August. And based on your response, it will offer a different story where it'll tell you, in this case, I was saying I will spend them in Russia. And again, here are various options that we have provided through Tinkoff Journal for customers to see what they could do in Russia over the holidays, since the travel restrictions. And so it was taken with a lot of skepticism. Actually, this is quite interesting. This is a financial dictionary, to the point about financial education and making sure that people know what they're doing when it comes to their finances. We actually provide quizzes and financial dictionaries where people can learn certain words or certain concepts about finance in order to make sure that these people actually, they're doing the right things with their finances. And pretty big success. We've got over, I think, 1 million monthly active users of our stories.
Wow! So that's an internal kind of journalist team. How large is that team of kind of bloggers and journalists and people in that area?
It's very sizable. So we've got over 600 authors and expert contributors that actually, some of which are partners, some of which work for us, which are constantly producing this content. As I said, we've got about 400,000 daily active readers, 8.5 million monthly active readers, and this is completely free. So this actually goes to the core of how we go about engagement and try to engage with our customers. We've got every product within the Tinkoff ecosystem needs to satisfy one of 3 basic principles. It either brings in hundreds of thousands of customers every month, in which case we're happy to run the product pretty much at break even, because then we can cross-sell to them the second bucket, which is the products that we actually monetize. And that's the credit products, retail brokerage, insurance, SME, etc. And then we have the products like lifestyle banking, where we run them on a break-even level to make sure that our customers are engaged. They have a reason to take out their app every day and spend some time with us and become more loyal and kind of increase the network effects of the ecosystem. And Tinkoff Journal fits very well into that, because you have daily content that we generate and that we provide that gives a reason to the customer to pull out their app and actually browse through it.
Yeah. And so you mentioned inspiration came from things like Snapchat and Instagram and things like that. How about in the financial space? Is there anyone else doing anything like this?
So in Russia, there are some players that are doing something similar. So Sberbank, again, a very digitally advanced Russian government-owned bank. They're also creating an ecosystem with various different services that go way beyond banking. They're going a slightly different way about it. They're more going the M&A route and actually acquiring companies that they want to integrate into their ecosystem. We are going more of a partnership way. So we'll partner up with any merchant or any partner that seems reasonable to us, that actually allows us to integrate quite quickly and to be very nimble to move into a certain direction if we think that might be interesting. In Europe, I would say, again, we think we are a little bit, in Russia, the banks are a little bit more advanced. Of course, we look more at tech companies, say in Asia. We look at other super apps, the Gojeks, the Grabs, the WeChats. That's more a source of inspiration than I think a lot of financial players in the so-called developed world.
Yeah, for sure. And it was great to see the stuff around financial education, especially as you're moving into things like investing and that kind of stuff. It's really good to kind of put out all that information and formatting it in the way of quizzes as well. Is very original. I've not seen that. No,
absolutely. And I mean, it's absolutely crucial. And you brought a very good point about the investments business. So actually Tinkoff Investments is its own separate app, not the one that we're looking at here. And we provide a ton of educational material to avoid, mishaps in the form of mistakes and trading mistakes. And so we have, for example, a social network on the Tinkoff Investments app with, I think, more than 300,000 users by now, where we provide tons of content and analysis of stocks, bonds, and all sorts of products. Because again, a lot of these customers are depositors.
Yeah.
So we don't want them to move into the investments world and then lose them because they do something wrong and then they blame us for it, or they blame the product. So it's absolutely in our interest to make sure that these guys are as financially educated as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually on the social side of things, you mentioned it's not user content, but I saw a thumbs up button there. How much can users kind of interact, and can they comment on these kind of blogs and stories?
No, so you can share the stories. So you would be able to take that story and share it on WhatsApp or any social media. The likes and the comments is more for us to know whether the content is relevant, so that next time around when you open your app, we'll be able to offer content that is more tailored to you. So for example, if in the app I've been looking at tickets to Italy, then it's highly likely that the next time I go into the app, there will be some kind of story about travel to Europe or maybe travel to Italy that will be more tailored to my needs.
Okay, great. Very tailored experience with a lot to offer then.
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the next one, which is purchasing an iPhone.
Correct. So this is part of the integration that I mentioned earlier with a marketplace called 𝗧𝗶_𝗪, which is a Russian marketplace predominantly for electronics, where through the app you can, again, you can't see it from this screen, but we saw the home page earlier. Then you have a services tab in the middle of the app with all the different lifestyle services, and we've got ticketing, and this one obviously is e-commerce. And you click there, and we've obviously integrated with 𝗧𝗶_𝗪. We have their catalogs, and you can buy. In this case, you've got 5 things in the basket. You can browse through the different products. You can choose whether you want it delivered to your house, or in this case, whether you want to pick it up yourself at the store. Here, you're picking the store that you want to pick it up at, and then you continue to checkout. You've got your different cards at the top that you can browse. You've got your debit card in this case, and then you just click one button. Everything is within the app, and off you go. You can go pick up your iPhone, or your iPhone will be delivered on the scheduled time. So basically, within 10-15 clicks in this case, you can browse through the catalog of electronics and go ahead and buy the product, and everything through the Tinkoff app with a single sign-on. You don't need to input any card details because everything is within the Tinkoff ecosystem, and it's native within it. So it's just a very neat experience. And because again, we run this lifestyle part of the ecosystem on a break-even basis, all the money that we make from commissions or interchange, etc., we give it back to the customer. Either we give it back to the customer or the merchant gives it back to the customers, mostly in the form of cashbacks. So actually our agreement with 𝗧𝗶_𝗪 right now is that every purchase you make on 𝗧𝗶_𝗪 through the Tinkoff app, you'll get 5% cashback.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's kind of, it is commission based, but you return the commission and that's to drive engagement.
Correct. So the commission, and again, this very much depends on the partner. It depends on the product, and we tailor it to the individual merchant. But basically, we might be able to charge a commission on each purchase. We might be able to charge a commission on every on leads, on customers that we bring on board. But again, because here the goal of the whole lifestyle banking is to create engagement and to create a product that actually customers like and they want to use more, we make it into a very rich and satisfying product, also financially. So we give you back hard cash back. So you will get basically a 5% discount effective on the 𝗧𝗶_𝗪 products. And again, for every other different product, we've got different cashbacks, different sources of funding that cashback as well.
It's great to see how kind of seamless that experience is. It's kind of, it could only be that seamless because it's integrated into the super app where you've got all your financial information there already.
Correct. And we've developed a technology called apps and app, where actually we can make changes to these effectively mini apps within the bigger Tinkoff app. We can make changes very quickly. It's very tailored to the customer. And actually, you don't need to update your mobile app in order for the changes to appear. It updates automatically within the app. So the experience is constantly updated and constantly improved for the customer.
Right. And in terms of kind of other where you're moving with this, are you looking to sell other things now? I'm sure you've got a huge kind of e-commerce space there, but are you looking to expand that into any other areas? Yeah,
so I mean, we already have, I think, probably 15 or 20 different sections within the services tab. So we've got cinema booking, theater tickets. We have our own travel agent, so we can book hotels and flights. And actually, we are one of, if not the largest partner of Booking.com in Russia when it comes to ticketing. We have some e-commerce activity. You saw 𝗧𝗶_𝗪, but you can order flowers. You can order someone to come clean your house. You can book a doctor. You can. We are the sponsors of the Russian Premier League, the football league. So you'll be able to buy tickets to football games through the app. So we're constantly updating the number of services. Again, I think we've got probably 15 or 20 now. We want to launch maybe 10 more by the end of the year. And the way we go about launching them is like, we have a lot of data about our customer base. So we have 11 million customers within the ecosystems. And we know which categories they normally spend money on, even if it's outside of the Tinkoff ecosystem.
Yeah.
So we can look at their top 10 categories of spend. And then we can see, okay, well, a big percentage of our customers spends money in this particular category. We should probably include that category within our app. And that's one of the approaches that we do when we think about what to add to the app next.
And in terms of what to surface to them within the app, do you analyze their spending habits and then surface certain things that you might see there?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, everything is data driven, right?
Yeah.
So we have the data, we can see the spend, and we will tailor the stories, the offers, the products, everything according to the trends that we can see in your transactions.
Yeah, and how have people been interacting with these e-commerce bits of the app? Any aspects where people have been particularly interested in?
Yeah, so actually, I can give you a few stats that I have from. I mean, this is a lot of these services obviously were booming before COVID, and now they're recovering after the fact that during lockdown you can really go to the cinema and stuff. But before COVID, we were selling about 400,000 cinema tickets per month. Incredibly popular service. We're booking or selling 25,000 concert tickets, 20,000 theater tickets, 12,000 restaurant bookings, 55,000 flights, 50,000 hotel reservations. So the share of people that is using these services is growing, basically on a daily basis. So right now, as I said, we've got 11 million customers, of which about 6.5 million are monthly active users. And daily active users, we're talking about now over 2 million. And the share of daily active users continues to grow as a percentage of your monthly active users.
Nice.
And more and more, and then again, more and more of those daily active users are using the lifestyle banking offering. So the ticketing and stuff like that.
Yeah. And in terms of the inspiration, are you looking to Asia again at those super apps?
In terms of what, sorry?
In terms of the inspiration of kind of integrating e-commerce into the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, we study very carefully the Asian expertise, where super apps clearly have taken off. And again, you look at a Grab or a Gojek. Obviously, they have a very different core. So it's much more in that case around ride hailing and food delivery, which are very high frequency and daily usage activities. We come from a different perspective. So we come from a financial core. And actually, I think it's quite rare, and we haven't found that many that many other financial companies that have gone the super app way. Mostly it comes from a different angle and a different service. Again, in the case of Asia, mostly ride hailing and food delivery. If you look at China and WeChat, perhaps there it's more social messenger, and the fact that you use that every day and you try to attach different products. But yeah, I would say we're looking more east than west for inspiration.
For sure. And just finally, in terms of the partnerships you build in order to operate these kind of this ecosystem and this particularly in the e-commerce area, how has that been and how is that managed?
So again, it varies from merchant to merchant and partner to partner. Oftentimes, because we have a pretty substantial customer base with very highly engagement and lots of daily active users, we have merchants that come to us ourselves. So they ask, can we be part of the Tinkoff ecosystem? And then we'll strike some kind of agreement again with respect to what kind of level of integration you want into the app, whether there's going to be a commission based on transactions, based on leads, who funds the cashback and the perks for the customer. So it's a very tailored approach. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So now our final journey is booking a restaurant.
Yeah, so this is what is one of the most popular options that we have. We're integrated with 2 aggregators. You can basically book a restaurant pretty much all over Russia, and you'll see. I mean, in this video, you'll see Moscow restaurants. We categorize the restaurants based on the highest cashbacks, or if it's got a summer terrace or whatever it is. It's got all the reviews of the restaurants. You can book obviously the date and the time. And then actually from the app, you would also be able to book a taxi to the restaurant, so that again everything can be done here. And actually, this is a good screenshot to just see here. This is the service tab that I was talking about earlier. So from the left, moving right, you've got cinema tickets, restaurant, sport events, concerts, travel, gas stations, shopping, goods.ru, which is the marketplace we saw earlier, insurance. And where you see the 10%, 15%, those are the cashbacks that are on offer for the client.
Really nicely delivered, and it really reminds me of actually apps within a phone. Lots of the visual language is very similar, so it really just shows that the diversity of.
And you can almost think about it, it becomes more a competitor of an app store than of another app.
So that's one of your most popular ones you mentioned. Is there a kind of partner organization that you're working with, or is this entirely in-house?
So again, in the case of restaurants, we've got two aggregators that we work with that provide the restaurants and the booking service. Mm-hmm. And again, it will depend on, every service has a slightly different structure. So for example, as I said, travel, we have our own travel agents within Tinkoff Group, but we partner with Booking.com. With the cinemas, it's more similar to restaurants. So again, it very much depends. And at the end of the day, as long as it's convenient for the customer, we're happy to talk to the merchants.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of convenience from the customer, just 3 really quick journeys. I mean, it's very hard to book a table in that short amount of time without leaving the app as well. So really enjoyed watching those. In terms of kind of other next features and products really within this ecosystem, do you know where Tinkoff might be heading?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few things that we want to do. So again, as I said, we're looking at the top 10, say, spending categories of our customer, and we're going to go. We're hopefully going to be able to look at what these guys spend and offer them through the app. So that's obviously things like food delivery, taxi, transport, pharmacies, etc. But also we are trying to, in the context of providing content that is interesting to the client, and again, it goes back to Tinkoff Journal and the stories. We want to broaden the amount of partnerships that we have in terms of content providers. So that we can flag more prominently events, museums, exhibitions, things that might be interesting to our customer base that we can put in front of them through the app. So it's a lot of different services, and both content and actual services for the customers that they can do purchases based on the data that we see from our customers and the interest that they're raising with us.
Okay, great. And in terms of expanding markets, kind of geographically, is that something that might be on the horizon?
So historically, we've always looked at Russia, and we think Russia is a great market to do business in, where we are deploying capital at very attractive rates of returns for our shareholders. So to dilute management's time and our capital, it was never really an obvious decision, and we still think we have a lot of stuff to do in Russia. So Tinkoff is not going outside of Russia. We think Russia still has a lot of opportunities for us. And again, as I said earlier, we've got 11 million customers right now. We think we can grow to 20 million over the next 3 years. Yeah. And we want to do a lot more business with each one of our customers as well, because if for the last 3-4 years we've been busy building a lot of these verticals, now it's really time to unlock that ecosystem effect and make sure that our customer uses all the products that he needs or she needs within the Tinkoff ecosystem.
And in terms of kind of the super app concept, by no means a new one and developing quite quickly across globally. Do you see this as a kind of natural evolution of where things are going in terms of mobile apps becoming more and more consolidated?
Look, I think the jury is still out, and some geographies are clearly more advanced from that perspective, or they've been more open to the super apps. Perhaps because if you look in the West, people are used to having different apps for different services. So they'll use Google for search, they'll use Amazon for commerce, they'll use Facebook for social media, etc. In Asia, I feel like a lot of these came up at the same time, so it was more natural for the customer to just choose one platform through which they could do all of it. Yeah. Russia is kind of somewhere in between, and again, we are betting on the fact that the super apps will be the winner in the end. But of course, the jury is still out. I think Europe perhaps looks more a little bit like the US example, where again everybody's used to different apps.
Yeah.
So I think it's a function of how how the market has evolved, how quickly and when these services started to appear.
Sure. Okay, great. I think that's all, unless there's anything you'd like to add to the end of that. It's been really great seeing those different journeys and talking to you about Tinkoff.
Of course. And of course, there's a lot more use cases that we could have shown, but obviously in the interest of time, I'm very happy to interact with anyone that wants to talk about Tinkoff after watching this video. I'm sure we can share the contact.
And how would they get in contact, actually? Do you have a Twitter or?
Well, so firstly, we're publicly listed, so you can find all the information on Tinkoff on our website, on the investor relations part of the website, and you've got our contact as well. So we're more than happy to engage in conversations, whether it's just interest, curiosity, or something more serious. Who knows?
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's been great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, John.
No worries at all. If you'd like to see more journeys like this and from fintechs and banks across the world, you can find them on pulse.11fs.com. Thanks for joining us, guys. See ya.
Bye.